Sweeping tariffs are reshaping global trade. So, in these uncertain times, what role should our federal government play to help Canada thrive? Every Wednesday during the campaign, Windsor Morning is hosting an election panel with local voices from three main parties. For the Conservatives, we have Teshuba, a former candidate who is now the vice president of the Riding Association in Windsor-West. For the Liberals, we have Alicia Higgison. She's the vice president of the Riding Association in Windsor-Tecumseh-Lakeshore. She's also a Tecumseh town councillor. And for the NDP, Natyshak. He represented Essex as an MPP from 2011 to 2022. Welcome back to all of you.
Good morning. Great to be here. Good morning.
Well, tariffs are changing how we do business in Canada, so we're going to talk about your party's vision for how Canada should adapt. To set us up, here's a clip now from Liberal leader and Prime Minister Mark Carney.
Canada is ready to take a leadership role in building a coalition of like-minded countries who share our values. We believe in international cooperation. We believe in the free and open exchange of goods, services, and ideas. And if the United States no longer wants to lead, Canada will.
So, Therese, I want to start with you. Why don't you kick us off with this one? What are your thoughts on where priorities should be right now?
Well, good morning, everyone. We've woken up to a new world. This is certainly true with the imposition of those tariffs that have clobbered world economies, and it's important that we recognize that our relationship with the United States has potentially changed forever, if not for the short time being until the next midterm elections. What does that mean for Canada? Well, it means we have to be resolute about protecting our domestic economy, ensuring that the resources that we have are used appropriately to bolster our economy, and to connect and partner with global economies and countries that have those shared values. I would start immediately with our NATO alliances and ensuring that strategic alliance that has been in place for so long is reassured, and the confidence is made that Canadians will be there to protect each other, that commitment we've made, but also to emerging economies and democracies that are potentially struggling around the world that need our help, that need our guidance, and ensuring that Canadians are the beacon of hope in North America, that the rule of law applies, and that trust can be had and made in this country when you're doing business or connections on economic development, or just all the things that make our global economy work.
Alicia, are you in agreement with what you hear Therese saying?
Yeah, I am. And I actually think it's been great for Canadians to be able to see how a Liberal government would do that. We've had, I guess, maybe 9 days of a Mark Carney prime ministership, and he really kind of set a vision for not only how we build a strong Canada, but how we diversify those relationships externally. I think we all anticipated what was coming with Trump and his tariffs. I think we've done a decent job at trying to maintain that relationship as it is now. But I think there's a smart vision that we're looking to diversify the kinds of relationships that we have in Europe, and looking to kind of strengthen up those markets to provide businesses a stable market to be able to thrive in. And we're looking internally. We've announced $5 billion in a diversification trade corridor, and we need skilled workers to do that. We also need interprovincial trade, and I would argue that it's a better Liberation Day for Mark Carney announced that we're going to have interprovincial trade by Canada Day, which may be our actual Liberation Day here.
So we are going to have a next conversation is going to be about interprovincial trade. Looking at the larger picture, Al, I want you to weigh in on what you think the vision for Canada needs to be. We're hearing about diversification. Is that sort of where you stand as well?
Well, I mentioned actually in last week's show talking about the interprovincial trade barriers that need to be eliminated. So I'm glad it's a topic, and I'm glad you're going to let me play the Pierre clip, which is a new trading partner, which people can Google, and this was out 2 months ago. But in it, you'll hear about the importance of having more trade within Canada that can increase our overall sales up to $5,100 per person, increase our GDP, and have a customer that is ourselves. So this will help workers, businesses, trade, expanding our partners. We talked last week about Trump's Liberation Day. I think I called it. I said, actually, Canada, this will be a wake-up call for us to have Freedom Day, us to be able to be free of our own barriers, our own restrictions within our own country. It's ridiculous. Pierre was talking about it way, way before Mr. Carney ever introduced anything like this. This has been a policy of the Conservative government. If you talk about the Liberal government, it's been on for 10 years. Why didn't they do it before? I understand Carney's coming in, the threats of Trump, but look at who's been introducing such policies before. It's been the Conservatives.
So you've mentioned already, most of you, about the interprovincial trade. So just yesterday on our show, I spoke with Simran Singh from the Ontario Chamber of Commerce. I want you to listen to a bit of what he had to say, and then I'm going to ask for your response.
The overall idea here is that there's real anxiety. Businesses need predictability. These tariffs are starting to introduce uncertainty across the country and across the province that anchor many of these, industries. So a couple of things that we've been calling for. One is, an honest, open conversation and effort towards breaking down barriers between provinces that can unlock domestic growth, actually helping businesses diversify their exports, helping them access some of these new markets. And then not to forget the investments in skills and workforce training, because many of these businesses are operating in areas and sectors where labor shortages continue to be a real thing.
So, Al, I want to start with you. What's your response to just what you just heard? Do you agree with those ideas of ways of helping local businesses?
I mean, commerce agencies across Canada, they get it. They're business people. You have better business, you have better trade, you'll get better jobs, you'll have more secure jobs, you'll have more revenue. And to have the trade east and west instead of north and south. I mean, this is just basic business here. And for years, there's been restrictions upon restrictions within the interprovincial. Not just on the trucking and all the exemptions, but my goodness, there are people with qualifications that cannot work in other provinces. So the Conservatives are talking about making a blue seal standard of approval for engineers, for doctors, people even international being able to be qualified for workers. I mean, this needs to change. We have our entire country as our customer as well as our supplier. It's a win-win-win. And give the Conservatives a chance to form government, and we'll get out of our own way as far as provincial restrictions. I mean, there's even restrictions with regards to how truckers can go across the border, which is ridiculous. You see all the trucks going to the States. We need to go east and west.
Taras, how does the NDP approach this conversation?
Yeah, I think it is a valid option and one that we have to investigate. There have been figures put up that interprovincial trade barriers or the elimination of them could increase domestic GDP by 4%. That's a huge number. So if we can spark that type of economic activity, then we have to look at it. But it may be a little bit easier said than done. The reason these barriers are up in the first place is because there are certain sectors that require certain regulations that protect them from outside forces, protect them from interior forces. That has to be acknowledged, and those are going to be discussions that are going to be really difficult to have, particularly in the agriculture and food sector. If you look at the supply managed sector, which the Conservatives have attacked for 20 years, that protects domestic production of food, and particularly in Quebec. That is something that has maintained those family farms, those small family farms that, again, provide us a measure of food security. If you lose that aspect of your country, food security, you are vulnerable. Your sovereignty as a country is vulnerable. So we have to be cognizant that it's not just, hey, let's just throw out the baby with the bathwater or deregulate everything to the furthest extent and make us sort of the easiest jurisdiction. It has to be done quite acutely, quite specifically, and targeted.
And Alicia, the Liberals have talked about workforce investment, about looking at interprovincial trade. What's been done so far?
I kind of want to piggyback a little bit on what Taras was saying. I think we do need some. It's not a smash and grab here. It's not. We have to be kind of skilled at what this is. And I think what chambers are actually calling for is cooperation and streamlining some of these things. And I think when we streamline processes, I see this in my municipal work. When we make things kind of easier and simpler for people, people save money. And I think a Liberal government has made the promise to do some of those things, along with eliminating those interprovincial trade barriers. And I think it's really interesting to have a skilled economist at the helm when you're doing this, somebody who's actually been in the trenches and done the work, made a payroll, those sorts of things. I think there is, because it is easier said than done. And when you've done it and you can actually put those things into practice, it really, Canadians are able to benefit from that leadership. And I mean, if the chamber is looking for cooperation, is looking for us to agree with each other, it must be really frustrating for them to see things like Danielle Smith in Alberta kind of attacking both Carney and Poilievre and trying to think of ways to kind of hit at both of those. And so if we're looking for cooperation, then I think the Liberal government has proven that we're the ones to do it.
It's not just a concern for the business community. We also know that people are very nervous right now about the future of the economy, for their jobs, for their own household budgets. Now, leaders agree jobs are a priority. I put together this clip. Have a listen.
Keeping Canadians working should be our top priority. If a worker loses his job, it's much harder, longer, and actually more expensive for the government to try and get him back into employment than it is to try and keep him working in the interim period while this dispute is on. The Conservative government, if elected at the end of this month, will launch a Keeping Canadians Working Fund, a targeted temporary loan program for businesses that are directly hit, helping them keep workers on the job.
Workers from Unifor Local 444, with whom I met last week, learned that their auto assembly plant in Windsor will be shutting down for at least the next 2 weeks. That's 3,600 workers who are now out of work, not by their choice. Workers who now worry how they're going to put food on the table and pay their bills. I and my government stand in solidarity with those workers in Windsor and all those workers hurt by President Trump's tariffs. And that's why we committed from the very start that all, and I repeat, all of our tariff proceeds will go to protect workers affected by the tariffs.
We saw that through New Democrats, we were able to deliver things like protections for workers. We were only to be able to do that because you voted for us. You voted for New Democrats and you sent us there, and we were able to fight for you. So if you want those fights to continue, if you want us to stay in there fighting for you and your family, you got to vote for us.
Alicia, I'm going to stay with you. How do you reassure people that they're being looked after during these times?
I mean, I think you heard it right there, and especially locally. Mark Carney was here talking about what the impact would be before we knew what the tariffs would be to Windsor workers, and then we watched it happen. And it's been reassuring to me as a member of this community and as a leader in this community that there is somebody actually looking out specifically for what's happening here. I think I mentioned it last week, and I think that it's true that Windsor will feel it first. Windsor and Essex County will feel it first, and we'll feel it the longest. And I heard a sense of pride even in my non-Liberal circles about reciprocal tariffs put on the United States, and that kind of strong Canadian response. And we also heard from Mark Carney that he wants to be a global leader. And I think that's really important right now, because if we're going to actually challenge that relationship, then we do have to open up other relationships for workers, for businesses. And I think he's the person to do that. We also have to look at what it means to live while you don't have a job. And so super interesting to me that a Liberal would. The first thing that he did as a prime minister was cut the consumer carbon tax, and the first announcement he made on the campaign trail was to cut taxes for middle and low-income workers. I think those are really important things.
And Al, how would Conservatives make life more affordable for people?
Well, this is our number one issue. We were talking about cutting the tax, building homes, fixing the budget, stopping the crime from day one. And the affordability is our key aspect. Now, of course, with the Trump trade and tariffs aspect of it, we've added further to that, talking about the other economic policies. But just going back to what Alicia said, I mean, two things. One, as far as the policies for Windsor, Pierre's coming on Friday. Wait till all the national policies are tied in beautifully to Windsor. Our local candidates certainly are talking about it, but as far as Windsor, we're ground zero. Trade, the border, economy, manufacturing, auto. These are the policies that are going to protect Windsor jobs, protect our Windsor businesses. And as far as having somebody from a global being part of our Canadian economy, I'd rather have Pierre Poilievre, because he knows the policies inside and out. He knows all the barriers, all the restrictions. He knows all the players. To have that type of experience, to be able to do something legislatively to actually improve our policies for Canada, I think is the best way to go. Get ready. Get ready for the enlightenment of Windsor being ground zero for the success of the Conservative government.
And Taras, with the economy under pressure, how would your party help bring Canada to a place where we're making ends meet?
Well, I think we would start by being apprehensive about the Conservative plan. When I hear Al say "get ready," that gives me the heebie-jeebies, and I think that's being reflected in the polling, the polling that you see nationally. The Conservatives have plateaued, and I think when they talk about their platform, the similarities to what we see in Project 2025 are glaring. We are very frightened that this is the party that would acquiesce to the Americans. And that's our number one issue right now, the deregulation of our protections and the mass firing of public sector workers, the protections that we've had that ensure that economies can work to a scale that we need here in Canada. I think, there's a lot of slogans being thrown around, but realistically, we need focused attention on preserving the jobs that we have. That means working with trade unions, ensuring that they are able to have the resources to train the workers of today and into the future, working with educational institutions and making sure that they have the funding to support those novel industries that are coming online that are going to position us as leaders in this new global economy.
Al, what do you think about what you've heard?
I think everything that has been laid out as problems, the Conservatives have the solutions. And it's not just new solutions that have been touted just because of the election, because of tariffs. You look back, these have been solutions that have been ingrained in Conservative Party platforms for years. I mean, the video that Pierre has put out was put out well before people were talking about tariffs, everything to do with having a more steady economy, more creation of jobs. This is the Conservative platform, lowering taxes, get rid of the carbon tax. We've been saying axe the tax for years, not just 2 weeks before an election. I mean, realistically, you have a Conservative government that has the policies for economic success. And when I said get ready, Taras, I'm talking about this Friday, get ready for the biggest historical rally ever and messaging for Windsor like you've never, ever heard before, because it's going to be incredible.
And Alicia, I'm just wondering, there's been lots of conversation about affordability for a long time, and it seemed to have taken the tariffs to bring this to the forefront. What's your thoughts on that?
I think there is a real need to respond to an immediate threat, and I think what we've learned over post COVID and especially in kind of recent years with the way that that things are unpredictable, let's say, that we really need something that is a kind of strong vision right out of the gate. And I will say that a lot of what we have done in the past has been strong for Canadians, and we also have a new leader, and it is important to note that I take your point that Poilievre has been in those rooms, but I also would like to make the point that Carney has been invited into rooms with Conservatives, with Liberals, with all stripes from different countries. And so he does have this this proven ability. He has the kind of evidence behind his name that he's been able to kind of step in and bring stability to multiple situations that require a strong economic mind. And I'm glad that we have that. And I'm glad that Liberals overwhelmingly supported him for a leader. I think it gives him a strong mandate to be able to go out and do these things and make these changes that Canadians need.
Taras, last point to you, but looking at Jagmeet Singh, he is sort of fighting for his own seat. What confidence should people have in the NDP right now?
I can't remember an election where New Democrats weren't the underdogs to begin with. I've ran in 6 campaigns myself, and so I never went in thinking I was going to win, but I did know that I went in ready and willing to fight for Canadians, fight for Ontarians, and fight for our communities. That is the raison d'être en français for the NDP. We are a party that was born out of the Dust Bowl of Saskatchewan in the height of the Great Depression. We know what it means to support people who are suffering and to fight for them and to bring about policies that make life better for Canadians. In fact, those policies are still here today. Universal health care is the pillar of what we feel as Canadians, where we take care of each other and ensure that we are looking out for each other. That's what it means to be Canadians. That's why we are respected around the world. And you can count on New Democrats to continue fighting in that vein.
All right, Taras, we'll leave it there. Thank you so much to our panelists for coming in today. Taras Natyshak with the NDP, Alicia Higgison with the Liberals, and Teshuba with the Conservatives. They'll be back with us again next Wednesday at this time to discuss the campaign stories that come up over the next 7 days.